Do you ever read the book to like kids, like a little children
When it
audience?
first came out,
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
But I write so much that when a book is done, for me, it's done.
Yeah.
Except for a few, which people always want to hear. One is Owl Moon, the other is How Did Dinosaurs Say Goodnight.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when I really am reading a book, it's when it's newly out, and
Yeah.
then I do that for half a year, even a year,
Mm-hmm.
and then it sort of fades, and I'm on to something else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I really had to look through the book to remember it,
Yeah.
because this was not a book that this book has been around for quite some time. You know, just it's backlist.
Is doing a nonfiction picture book a lot different from doing a fictional picture book or something longer?
Well, first of all, picture books and novels are very different.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes picture books are a lot harder, simply because every word has to be right. With a novel, you can lose whole paragraphs and you don't even notice. Um, Nonfiction picture books, of which I've done quite a few, take as much research as if you were going to write a huge book, because you have to, after you've done all that research, you have to boil it down to the essentials and try to find a way in to the story that's going to be accessible to children, um, and can be told in very few words. And that's hard. It's easier to start fresh with fiction in a picture book that doesn't have, it doesn't have to be tied to anything. I've just finished two books that were really very difficult. One is about Honus Wagner, who's the greatest shortstop that baseball has ever had. And we did it all without drugs. um, that that was difficult because, you know, then you have a man's whole life,
Mm-hmm.
and you have those things which the real baseball fans are very interested in, but no one else is. And how much of that do you put in a book for 5, 6, 7, 8 year olds? Then I did I'm just finishing a manuscript on a section of Benjamin Franklin's life, but it's about his son and what was known as the Leather Apron Club. Benjamin Franklin started a group of men, all of whom, uh, for their jobs, wore leather aprons, or most of whom did. And there were 12 men in it originally, and they ended up making the first lending library in America. Um, but it had to be from the boy's point of view, and he was too young to be a member of the Leather Apron Club. So it had to be about his relationship with his father and his mother, and his cousin and his surroundings. And then he had to go one day. He had to be invited by his father for some reason to go to the Leather Apron Club, its library. And that reason was he had gone from being a very wild kid with his cousin to being a kid who loved books. And the transition um, came when his father, trying to tame the wildness in him, hired a tutor for the cousin and for the boy, um, Will, and he became obsessed with books. And he ended up being governor of New Jersey, and he also was a Tory. And so when the revolution came, he and his father broke ranks, because Franklin, of course, was very involved with the starting of the United States of America, and his son was loyal to the king and moved to England, where he lived for the rest of his life. And they only met once more after that. So those sorts of things. I mean, that's a lot to try to get into a book
Mm-hmm.
that's only going to be less than 40 pages. So.
So what's the research process like for something like that? It sounds like you know a lot of details now.
Yes, you have to. If the person themselves has written anything, you start there. Or I usually start with a short overview, whether it's an encyclopedia or whether it's um, someone else's book about Franklin. That's where I start, just to get a kind of quick overview, and then I start saying, all right, what things do I have to get really into? And so Franklin wrote a lot, so there's that. But this part of his life, where the son was actually probably a child of a prostitute, and Franklin, before he was married, and then he took the child, and his wife had to, when he got married, had to raise the boy. She never liked him. So that's interesting, and you have to get it in, but subtly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the boy ran wild in the streets with his cousin, who lived with him, and so you have to do that, but you have to do it in a way that makes it sound not nasty wild, but it sounds sort of charming, um, because what it meant was they were skiving off of work. They were leaving the work. Mm-hmm. They were all both supposed to be working. He was supposed to be helping his dad in the print shop, and the cousin was helping in. They had a shop where they sold the stuff that was printed, but also other stuff that the mother took care of. So you have to show the boys tearing off their leather aprons and racing out, because it's much more fun to be in Philadelphia where everything happens then. So those sorts of things start to begin to open up the story for the telling in a picture book. And the same thing with Anderson. You want to hit the boy stuff early, so you see him with his father reading to him, with his mother telling him stories. You see the death of the father, with the mother telling him that it was the Ice Maiden who took him, which was, she was very into the folklore of the area, and there's all that stuff with his going off to become a famous poet and theater person in Copenhagen, and he was still a boy, so you can track that. You don't want to do that much with them as an adult and an old man, because the child who's reading the book wants to see the boy and compare themselves to the boy. And once you get them hooked into that, then they will go along with you for the bit that's the rest of the life. But more interesting to them is what they do in their younger years.